Welcome to the explainer. So, if you've ever hung out with a toddler, you know the look, right? That absolute unblinking trance they fall into when a certain kind of show comes on. Well, today, we're figuring out why that actually happens. We're decoding toddler screen time by breaking down the literal anatomy of baby learning content. We really need to ask ourselves, what exactly is the secret blueprint behind this stuff? Because let me tell you, it's definitely not random. The bright colors, the specific pacing, the repetitive sounds, it is all built on a highly specific structural formula that is completely designed to capture and hold a toddler's attention. And we're going to look at the exact instructions used to build these digital environments. All right, here's our agenda for today. We'll start with number 1, the baby content blueprint. 2, engineering interactivity. 3, core concepts and repetition. 4, the sensory audio experience. And 5, the final formula.
Section 1, the baby content blueprint, decoding the instructions.
To really get this, we've got to look at how it's actually made behind the scenes. We dug into a source document that literally lays out the exact AI prompts used to generate these shows. Just listen to the specific constraints here. Create a gentle baby learning video for ages 1 to 3. Use bright, colorful animation, simple shapes, slow transitions, and cheerful background music. It's essentially a strict recipe for an educational, calm, and age-appropriate atmosphere. The prompt explicitly dictates a slow pace so toddlers can follow along, completely avoiding those overwhelming rapid-fire cuts you might see in stuff for older kids. Okay, so how do those clinical robotic instructions actually play out on screen? Well, they manifest into these super enthusiastic, highly repetitive scripts. In our source transcript for a show called Lucas and Friends, we see this exact phrasing repeated multiple times whenever they open a surprise egg or a box. Twist, 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 I want to see. It perfectly aligns with the prompt's mandate for repetition and simple pronunciation. It's cheerful, it's slow, and it builds this incredibly gentle sense of anticipation. Section 2. Engineering interactivity, forcing engagement. Our source materials show that interactive moments aren't accidental. They are explicitly requested in the design phase. We can see a meticulously repetitive loop designed to tease and then reward attention. First up, you have the tease. Let's see what is inside. Then the action, twist, twist, twist. Boom, followed by a physical climax, let's open it by clapping. And finally, the educational reveal, ball, which gets repeated to reinforce the new word. And this 4-step loop happens over and over again. For balls, for buses, for introducing family members, it creates this predictable, interactive rhythm that toddlers just crave. You know what's really wild about this? It's the literal call to physical action. The script doesn't just ask, "Can you help me find the ball?" and move on. It literally says, "If yes, then nod your head like this." The characters actually model the physical response they want from the child. The script deliberately builds in these physical cues and forced pauses, praising the viewer with a good job right after. It creates the illusion of a two-way conversation. Section 3. Core concepts and repetition. Learning through loops. It is amazing to see the calculated correlation between those AI prompts and the actual playtime environment. For colors and shapes, the prompt rule suggests using repetitive phrases like, "This is a red circle." And in the transcript, this translates directly to repeating red bus, green bus, blue bus, yellow bus. For numbers, the rule dictates count aloud, and we see that perfectly matched when the characters count cups to build a tower. It is an exact, literal execution of the blueprint. And while we're talking about counting, notice the intentional simplicity of the limits used in the transcript. The number 5. Whether they're counting buses rolling through town or building a tower of cups, the counting rarely exceeds 5 in a single loop, and that is not an accident. It keeps the cognitive load incredibly manageable, perfectly pacing the content so toddlers can actually follow along without getting frustrated. But education at this stage is about way more than just ABCs and 23s. The script actively models emotional regulation and positive social skills. For instance, taking turns on the swing, or managing frustration by literally narrating the inner monologue. "I am waiting for my turn, waiting, waiting," helping rebuild a fallen cup tower by saying, "Don't be sad, I'll help you." They even spend whole segments expressing love to daddy and mommy. It is basically a highly structured masterclass in preschool social dynamics. Section 4. The sensory audio experience. Phonetics over words. Let's pivot for a second and look at a totally different style of baby media, one that pretty much throws the academic stuff right out the window. We're contrasting educational programming with the purely stimulative goals of sensory content. Educational content gives you ABCs, numbers, narration, and emotional modeling, right? But sensory content? That is driven by high-contrast visual stimulation and phonetic sounds. Instead of a narrator teaching you how to wait for a swing, the goal is pure hypnotic stimulation. And here is exactly what that sounds like in practice. This quote is literally the entire source transcript for a video titled Monkey's Jungle Adventure Baby Sensory. Ready? E-e-ah, ah-ah-oo, na-ah-oo-o, then he-on, nan, ch. It looks like a typo, right? But it's not. It perfectly captures how sensory stimulation relies heavily on phonetic, rhythmic, nonverbal sounds rather than actual language. To an adult, sure, it's gibberish, but to a developing baby brain, it is a highly engaging phonetic playground. Section 5. The final formula. Science, disguised as play. So, tying this all together, how do we actually define baby learning content? Well, it's a meticulously crafted, highly repetitive, and perfectly paced educational loop disguised as simple child's play. What often sounds like nonsensical baby babble or just mind-numbing repetition to us adults is actually a fascinating, data-driven science of attention. Every pause to nod, every slow transition, every phonetic monkey sound is engineered to match the exact processing speed of a toddler's brain. So, I want to leave you with this one final thought. We've seen the blueprint, and we've seen how well it forces engagement. If what looks like simple child's play is actually this meticulously crafted, AI prompt-driven formula, how will these hyper-specific prompt structures continue to shape the way our youngest minds process the real, unstructured world? It's a massive question about the future of early development. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this gives you a whole new perspective the next time you hear a screen ask a toddler to twist, twist, twist. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.